So when I browsed through the report, a few things spoke to me, not just as a professional or an engineer, but as a citizen of this country. And the one thing that really spoke out, and I've divided the highlights from each of the different sections. In section A, the aspect about the D rating to me was, it was quite shocking, but it's also a wake-up call to say that if we don't do anything to improve this rating, then it's going to go to an E rating. So for those that don't know what an E rating is, I've actually got this on my phone, unfit for purpose. And we can't go any further than that, unfortunately. We can only go to improving that towards an A rating. So A rating is benchmark, it's world standard. Then in section B, when we speak about the public assets and we look at state-owned companies, we all know it's struggling. There's wide media coverage on how our SOCs are struggling. And this manifests in various things. I mean, everyone's aware, the load shedding, the potholes, the pipe leaks, the constant pipe bursts. And our previous speaker has just shown us why there's these pipe bursts happening. And if we don't spend the money to fix our infrastructure, then we can't alleviate these symptoms of a bigger issue. So the other aspects in section B that really spoke to me is the issue of chronic unemployment. So by focusing on doing work in the infrastructure space, there's actually job opportunities that will open up. So if we spend the budget, there will be jobs that people can actually perform activities in. We talk about climate change. Aspects of it happens in places like Durban, where they had the flooding, and that caused not only infrastructure damage, but a lot of environmental damage as well to the freshwater systems there. We talk about Cape Town and Day Zero. So those kind of things where it's natural climatic conditions that are causing this, so we don't have much control over it. Only thing we can do is mitigate and think of what plans we can put in place to alleviate this. Also, COVID-19 was beyond our control, and some companies did have this in their business continuity plans, but others didn't. So clearly the SOCs didn't have this, and their revenue plummeted because no one was actually paying for anything. People weren't using roads. There were no tolls being collected. So those kind of things that we look at. But the most important thing about Section B is all of this requires reliable predictive maintenance. So for that you need data, for that you need historical records to actually predict what we can do better in the future. If we look at Section C, just the matters of critical importance, and this I summarize very succinctly in terms of people and relationships, and the other speakers have already alluded to the fact that people are reluctant to work in the public service. And we really need to address why that is. And there's many reasons, and people cite corruption, people cite reputational issues. If you take a job with public service, are people, what are they going to associate you with? And this is the kind of negative connotations that we as citizens need to actually remedy. If we talk about the robustness of our institutions, this has come directly from the IRC report. So in 2022, September, which is the date of that report, we had 151 out of the 257 municipalities insolvent, and 43 in crisis and require rescue. So this is, for me, quite a dysfunctional space of our municipalities. And clearly, if we're not spending, as we've just heard, then this is what the outcome is. So what we need is, we need the correct balance of skilled people. We need proper governance to be in place. We need decisions that's based on data. And that will allow us to improve the situation that we are in. And obviously, data and information, in order for condition monitoring, in order for reliability engineering, we need data. So this we can get if we just let go of legacy systems and move on to modern systems that allows us to do this kind of predictive maintenance. Section D, what spoke to me in Section D, this is quite a lengthy section, but we're looking at it just as a citizen who's experienced a lot of these issues. There's the green drop status, which speaks to the sanitation. That needs to be fixed. We talk about the blue drop rating on water quality. And I mean, if we look at what's happening now in certain parts of the country with the cholera outbreak, we actually say, what is our actual quality of water? And do you really want to drink something that's coming out of your tap that's not filtered and UV treated? I mean, if 11% is in the high risk category, did we just strike one of those now with the cholera outbreak? And 23% are in the critical risk category, which means that they could go to the high risk category at any point in time. So if we look at the context of this report, and we look at the response that EXA has done with a lot of research, there are other literature surveys that have been looked at. We look at the OECD. The OECD says that we need to invest by 2030 $71 trillion in infrastructure globally. So if this is a scary figure, imagine spending that kind of money in 8 years, or 7 years, because that's all we have left to actually spend this kind of money. In South Africa itself, we've seen a lot of statistics that's already coming through that's been presented. So one of it that's come out of the EXA research is that 30% of our GDP needs to be spent on infrastructure development by 2050. Whether this is achievable or not is yet to be seen, but that is the plan in order for us to ensure that our infrastructure actually goes at the pace that our economy needs to be growing at. Obviously, the IRC report is also a context for this. So we had a research response to the report, and we said the purpose was to investigate how EXA can respond to national infrastructure initiatives. The goal of this being to see how a professional body could be of assistance in developing infrastructure projects. And then the aim is to explore how professional bodies such as EXA could have a role in the public sector in infrastructure projects in this country. So if we look at the methodology that was taken, we looked at literature reviews, we looked at focus groups, and we also looked at structured questionnaires that were online. So if you look at the discussion on the role of EXA, we look at the infrastructure initiative arena, and that's developing, establishing, and providing and monitoring on technical and industry standards for infrastructure development. And this is also about enforcing professionalism in the industry and providing advice on government policies and planning concerning infrastructure projects. It also includes publishing information on infrastructure report cards, such as what we're discussing this evening, and on the required capacity of the profession and the best practices of the profession. Also, EXA can advocate for the use of technology in infrastructure development to assist the country in transitioning from what was a closed mineral economy to an open and integrated low-carbon economy, which is where we need to go to. And by doing this, and other speakers have already mentioned this, you need to strive to perform effective leadership and direction on infrastructure projects. And this is by partnering with voluntary associations such as SAICE and SAICE to contribute to any infrastructure initiatives. The conclusions of this research report are as follows. EXA must be an active participant in infrastructure initiatives. because ultimately it is the custodian of the engineering profession in South Africa. So, as mentioned before, traditionally South Africa had a closed mineral economy, and now we need to open it up to become a more low carbon economy. So it needs to be sustainable, it needs to lead to appropriate, effective, and stable technical decision making in a capacity that can actually go with infrastructure development and make it grow. And EXA has been doing a lot of things in the development, the establishment, the providing, monitoring and enforcing the technical standards in the industry, so they will continue to do this. And some ways where engineering professionals can get involved is that they should participate in infrastructure initiatives, providing the technical leadership that is required and using their skills and their knowledge in the project life cycle. If we look at just providing leadership and technical support and also mentoring and ensuring the high standards of productivity and good governance are there, it will lead to our country becoming a higher investment target for infrastructure development. If we look at just the recommendations that EXA's made in relation to the current topic, we've said that EXA should emulate what other international regulatory bodies have done by being proactive, vocal, and advocating on issues in the engineering profession, to focus and advise government on engineering skill shortage and the pipeline, on the National Infrastructure Plan for 2050, on the budget speed, on procurement practices, as has been mentioned previously, on policies, white papers, infrastructure bills, etc. We should be considering partnering with the Department of the Auditor General to assist with auditing infrastructure projects. It was just today that I saw that 38 of the 257 municipalities receive a clean audit. So that's even shocking and unfortunately complements the figures that we heard earlier. I've said already that collaboration with voluntary associations, with infrastructure research projects is crucial to how we can go ahead. And also providing capacity by providing its database of registered persons who offer specialist engineering skills, which are scarce in South Africa.